Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your host of the Mint Tea podcast, Wyatt Graves, and I am excited again to bring this kind of conversation to all of our listeners. Today's conversation is with another one of our mentees inside of the world. She's been a listener of this podcast. She's been inside of the mentorship mastermind community. She's attended one of the events, and she's also been an agent inside of my brokerage for a couple of years now. I've had the privilege and the honor to help coach and mentor her, to support her, to cheer her on. And she's done one heck of a job responding and applying all of the lessons that she's learned. You're going to hear in today's conversation how that which is most personal is most universal. And she's going to share some of her trials and some of her tribulations and the things that she struggled with. And she breaks down exactly how she was able to overcome some of those struggles and even achieve a dream that she has had for nearly 15 years. We talk about a lot. We talk about financial freedom, location freedom. How about spending freedom and the opportunity to spend money without thinking about it? That's one of her goals, and she talks about how she's planning and taking action towards achieving that very goal. Hey, I hope you find a lot of value in this conversation. I know that I did. And with that, let's get right to it. Here's my conversation with Allison Reed. Allison, what do you consider the good life?
I consider the good life doing whatever I want to do, like not having to be at a certain place or do a certain thing, traveling around the world, still working, but working, like you say, location freedom, being able to spend my money however I want and not have to think about if I spend here, where I'm going to have to cut there, and being able to pick up my hobbies. Like, I guess, design my day how I want my day to run. That's the good life to me.
I love that. You said spend money without having to think about it. What is necessary for that to happen?
A lot of real estate.
Our listeners don't know what you mean when you say a lot of real estate. So let's start with what do you do for money? What's your job? Tell us who you are and what you're all about.
So I'm a real estate agent on Wyatt's team, and I am the CFO of a restaurant that I've worked at for 11 and a half years. Literally started from the bottom, and I work for an engineering firm. I'm a civil structural designer for an engineering firm.
So you hold 3 jobs.
Yes.
Okay. Tell us more.
So my goal is to own a lot of investment properties and get to financial freedom that way.
Got it. And so when you say investment properties, what kind of investment properties?
Well, I'm going to, I'm not going to say hope. I'm going to buy some multifamily in Oklahoma when I get home from France.
Okay. And multifamily meaning duplexes, fourplexes, 100 units? How many kind of?
No, we're going to start small.
Okay. So tell me about the multifamily that you want to buy in Oklahoma.
Plexes or fourplexes.
Okay. And how many do you want to buy?
I want to have at least 4 doors by the end of next year.
Okay. By the end of 2024.
Whether that be 2 duplexes or 1 fourplex.
Okay. And then you said that you wanted to spend money. I need to go back and remember what you said. You said you wanted to spend money without thinking about it. That meant that you had to do a lot of real estate. So then I said, well, wait, tell us who you are, what you do. So you're a real estate agent, and now you want to be a real estate investor. So Correct. Why do you want to be a real estate investor?
Because a lot of the people that I know that have financial freedom are on their way to financial freedom own real estate.
Got it. So from real estate investing. So you prefer a lifestyle of financial freedom.
Yes.
And you have learned from other people that financial freedom can be found by becoming a real estate investor. Are you a real estate investor now already? Do you have anything under your belt now?
No, I mean, I own my townhome that I am hopefully going to be able to rent out while I'm in France. And owning that that townhome and remodeling it and all of that stuff has allowed me to take a HELOC out on it of $40,000. So it's just sitting there waiting to be used.
Okay. So you've talked about France a lot. So I know what you're
Mhm.
doing in France and how that's come about. So I want to stop talking about financial freedom for a second so that we can get that announcement made and kind of frame what's about to happen in your life relative to France.
So I am leaving September 4th to go to France for 87 days. I come home November 30th, and I'm going to Aix-en-Provence, which is in the south of France, and I'm going to live there and work remotely for 87 days.
And why are you doing that?
It's a dream of mine. I left the country for the first time the summer between my junior and senior year. And ever since then, I've had, the travel bug bit hard. And when I was 19, my wildest of wildest dreams, one of them was to live abroad for an extended period of time. And so I am finally getting to do that.
So this is a dream come true.
Yep.
And how long has that dream been inside of you, Allison?
Since I was 19 and I'm 34.
All right. So what is that, 14 years?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, 14 years. So let's just stop for a second. How are you making this happen? What has it taken to make this dream come true?
Well, it's taken a lot of decisions and hard work and tears and grit. So one of the things that's allowing me to be able to do this is having the remote jobs. And so having the job at Willie's, that's completely remote. I worked there for 11 and a half years. I had stepped away from the industry for about a year and a half. And the same week that I got the phone call to the offer to take that job, I had a meeting with a previous engineering firm that I worked with, my first engineering job out of college. I had a meeting with them. So I got the call on Wednesday, and I had a meeting from Willie's, and then I had a meeting on Friday with the engineering firm. And so I knew I was taking the Willie's position. And so when I went into the engineering firm, I just said what I wanted. I knew that they were busy and they needed people, they needed bodies. And so I told them, I was honest, I said, hey, Willie's offered me this, I'm taking it. But what I can offer is 20 hours a week. And I want to work completely remote. And when I say remote, I mean anywhere in the world, not like at my house. And they said, okay, well, we'll pass it by the higher ups and see what they say. And I just knew that they were going to be like, no, this is crazy. And the week later they called and said, yep, when you starting? And so for me, that was because I could have left both jobs when I left, in a bad place, right? I was worn out when I left Willie's. The service industry sucks the life out of you. In both of these jobs coming full circle, I learned a very valuable lesson. Not that I would ever do this. I try really hard not to burn bridges, but that was such a good example, 2 instances back to back, where not burning a bridge and just leaving on good terms is allowing me to live out my dream now.
Allison, I love that. What was it like to go into the second interview with the engineering firm and tell them the conditions in which you were willing to work for them?
It was pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie. It was something that I've always dreamed of doing, being able to say, hey, this is what I want, and take it or leave it. If you don't want it, that's fine. I have other options.
Well, what did it take to get there? That's what I want to dig into. How did you become that person? You said, I've always wanted that, but why didn't you always do it?
Well, I didn't have the position to be able to. So normally when I go into a job interview.
Do you mean the financial position? What position?
Financial position. Yeah, financial position. And then not having so many options. I have so many options. I can do so many different things. And in the back of all this, I have real estate still, so I had not only Willie's, but I also had real estate.
Did you not always have those options? Or did you really not have those options? Was this a mindset thing or was this a tangible thing?
A little bit of both, I suppose. I mean, I didn't always have real estate. I became a real estate agent in 2020. And if I'm being honest, that first year was pretty rough. You know that. I mean, I almost quit in February of last year because it was.
Why did you almost quit? It was just hard.
Real estate's the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole entire life. And I've done some hard things.
What was it about it that made it hard?
It pushed me out of so many comfort zones that, before, I like to tell this story, I would never be caught dead doing a real estate video, right? Whenever I started real estate, I was not doing videos. And what was it, a couple weeks ago, I posted a video on Facebook and didn't even think twice about it.
What did it take to go from the old Allison to the new Allison? Where did the transformation come from? That's what people want to know, because there's people that are going to hear this conversation and they're going to think, I'm not Allison. I know she did it, but that's not me, because that's where you were. I know other realtors do it, but that's not me. And now you're doing it and not even thinking twice about it. How did the transformation happen?
I think it's with who you surround yourself with, you know, being in an environment with people who literally the sky's the limit. Like, what do you want out of life? Okay, now go get it, which is easier said than done, but it helps your mindset to start changing and thinking on a bigger scale. And I mean, how many times did the people that I surround myself with, I did real estate, you know, at the brokerage, like, just post a video. It's not that big of a deal. Who cares? You know, it's constant. And when you hear that enough, you're like, yeah, who does care? And I think that the confidence level in real estate, like the more deals you do, the better you feel talking about things. And, you know, I had a great 2023, even though I almost quit in February. It ended awesome. And that was a lot of confidence to just go out and do more real estate transactions.
So let's do compare and contrast. What made it awesome? Why did 2023 earn the ranking of being awesome?
I think what made it so awesome was that I almost quit in February. And in fact, I was starting, instead of quitting, I was like, we're not going to quit because we've already put a lot of time and effort into this. So let's pivot, which is whenever I started looking up service industry jobs. And I was like, we literally went to college, so we would never be in this position. So let's go back to our degree and what we got our degree in, which is how I ended up back at an engineering firm. And having the financial stability of the engineering firm to where I could go out, and if someone, you know, didn't want to hire me, it wasn't a make or break. Like, I could still pay my bills because of the engineering firm. I'm a single income household. So if, you know, I didn't get hired for a deal, then, you know, I didn't know how to pay my bills. And once I got that steady income from the engineering firm, it's like, it gave me so much motivation to go out and get deals. And I think my confidence in my attitude going into like appointments, you know, I think I was projecting my stress. Like, if these people don't like me, I'm not going to get hired, and then I won't be able to pay my bills. Like, you're projecting that. And whenever I was no longer stressed about that, it made it a lot easier to go out and get clients.
And then 2023 came to an end, and it earned the ranking as being an awesome year, I think is the word you used, a great year. And so it's just because you persevered, or is there more to it?
I think persevere and grit, like never giving up, even when it's hard. It's easy to give up when it's hard. You know, you think, and I think being able to get the remote jobs and go to France in all of that gives me a different perspective, because, you know, when I was putting in the 11 and a half years of the restaurant, I'm like, this will net, like, what I'm giving all my time to a place that it's given me a lot. Like, don't get me wrong, I was able to do a lot while I was working there, but it took a lot too. And so it's like, one day you wake up and you're like, what am I doing? And then to turn around and get a really awesome job from it was just like a good lesson to just continue to grind, even when you don't want to, because you never know how that's going to end. You know, you never know where that's going to lead you.
Sure. And now today, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say work ethic too. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be able to go into the engineering firm and get a remote job because I had interviewed with other engineering firms, and they didn't want to let me work remote because they didn't know me personally. They didn't know my work ethic. They didn't know that I was capable of doing that. And so just always having a work ethic, even whenever you're tired and don't want to, people appreciate that, and it gets you pretty far.
Yeah. Sowing seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And then because you didn't quit real estate, it gave you the confidence to go into the engineering job to say, hey, this is what I want, take it or leave it. And that gave you the opportunity to have that job. But likewise, the engineer job gave you the confidence to talk to the real estate clients. Hey, this is what I have, take it or leave it. And then how about production in 2023? Was that your highest production year since you started?
Yeah. I mean, we're in 2023, so 2022.
I'm sorry, you're right. 2022.
I might have said 2023 earlier,
You
but
did,
2022.
Yep.
I'm jumping years. Yes, that was that. So I became an agent December 2020, 2021. I think I sold 12 houses. My production wasn't super high. And last year I sold, I think, 17 houses, but they were not average price point houses. And so I ended with a nice volume, I think over 5 million in volume.
Yep. And then this year, you've had two of the biggest deals ever, right? So the
Yeah,
volume
one's closed and we're working on the other one,
one's closed. And how big was that deal that closed?
which is funny. So that deal was 825, I think. And my client was, the restaurant that I'm going to work for. So
How about that? I don't know that I realized that.
yeah.
How about that? So we're going to go back to options then. So you said financial position and you had options. So what about your financial position allowed you to go into the engineering job to say, hey, this is what I want, take it or leave it? What's happened in your finances? Because we talked about the HELOC, we talked about the townhome. I want to reconnect and close that loop. But what about your financial position gave you that confidence?
So last year, I didn't do anything in 2020. Like all my money went to paying off debt, like just all the credit card, that I had racked up switching careers and being
So
an agent.
hold on, because that's something else that our listeners probably don't think, right? They think they're the only ones in credit card debt.
Oh God, no.
So to the degree that you're comfortable, what kind of debt did you have? Car note, credit cards, student loans? What are we talking about in terms of paying off debt?
Well, I hadn't paid my taxes in like a couple of years.
Okay.
And I had credit card debt racked up. I mean, I was putting pretty much everything on credit card. I could barely pay my bills, the first year of being an agent. And so I guess probably all in all, I had close to $25,000 worth of debt that I took care in a year. I took care of it in a year.
So you lived, saved, and paid off debt.
Yeah.
You did what it took to get ahead.
Mm-hmm.
What was the difference between that year and every other year? Like, where's the transformation coming from? We're going to go back to the environment. Is that what you pointed towards in terms of, like where you're at now? You're headed to France. You've got 3 jobs, all 3 that allow you to work remote. You're out of debt. You have a savings account now?
Yeah.
Have a savings account now. How are you going to pay your bills while you go to France for 87 days? What's that look like?
Well, I'm working remote, so I'm still bringing in cash.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what are you going to do? You said you're going to rent your townhouse out while you're gone.
Yes. Well, hopefully that's the plan.
Yeah. And how much longer until you leave?
I'll leave September 4th.
Okay. So what do you have to do? What do you have to do for the townhouse in order to rent it out? How do we make sure that you rent the townhouse out?
So I've put all of that on hold. So just I live one way and then, you have to rent out. The house has to be a certain way to rent out. And so just getting like curtains and, furniture and just making sure everything's top notch, working on my patio, and then I'll have to move everything out. So ceiling fan, like just not living how I've been living.
Gotcha. So just fixing it up and making it show ready.
Yeah.
Now, are you going to rent your car out? Did we talk about that?
We did not. And no, I'm not renting my car out.
Okay. Because, I just heard of Toro, the new Airbnb app for cars. And I'm going to go on a vacation here soon. And we're going to rent a car via Toro for the first time. So I'm having experience with that. I hear that it's cheaper than normal rental cars.
The thought crossed my mind, but I just got a new car. And so, I'm not doing that.
I didn't know you got a new car. What kind of new car you got?
I got a Rogue, a Nissan Rogue.
Okay. I did not know that. Well, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
All right. So moving through the agenda and going back to financial freedom and real estate investing, what's the plan there? How are you going to, when you come back and you want to get these duplexes or a fourplex, what's your plan to make that happen? How are you going to go from no rental property except owning your primary residence to being an investor and having property? What are you doing financially to help make that happen?
So I have my HELOC, and then I know that if I find a really good deal that I can call the people I know and we can work it out. Like if the bank, if it's more expensive than the bank's going to loan me, I know that I have connections.
Does everybody have those connections? How'd you get those connections? How did you learn that this opportunity and this lifestyle exists where You've got a $40,000 HELOC, which for those of you that don't know what a HELOC is, it's a home equity line of credit. It just means that Allison has bought a townhouse. She's fixed it. The things that you've done to fix it up are what? What have you done to fix up the townhouse to force the appreciation?
I pretty much gutted the bottom floor. Like not really, but
You didn't take sheetrock out.
in some places we did.
You did. Okay.
In some places, not the whole thing, but like I made the kitchen counter like bigger than we did some things, but for the most part, and some things in the bathroom, and the flooring stayed the same, but pretty much everything else got changed or upgraded.
And how did you pay for that? Was that what was on the credit cards?
No. Oh, no. Back then, so I bought my house in 2018. In 2018 and 2019, I was working full time at an engineering firm and at Willie's. So I was working 80 hours a week pretty much. One job funded whatever I wanted, and the other job paid my bills. And so in that time, I used the money probably from the restaurant to remodel my house.
Gotcha. Okay. And so that gave you higher valuation on your townhome from what you paid for it. So now you've got enough equity in the townhome to qualify for a $40,000 home equity line of credit, which serves kind of like a credit card, but you don't have to pay for anything unless you use it. So you're saving that. You have it in place. You're going to save it so that if something comes available in Oklahoma, you have at least $40,000 to play with. And then you'll reach out to people, your connections, to get money. Tell me a little bit more about how those connections came about and what they look like. Are they bankers or are they private lenders?
They are private lenders. My connections come about because I attend the mastermind. I mean, I'm part of the mastermind community, and just having conversations with people. So a long time ago, before I knew anything about real estate, I had approached a family member. And I was trying to get him to basically be my hard money lender, but I was like 20. And I didn't have the language or know, how to approach him to where he couldn't tell me no. And he's more conservative. And so, of course, I was 20-year-old just talking. And so he told me no, but I know that now if I approach him with a deal and have all of my ducks in a row, it would be a lot harder for him to tell me no.
How do you know that?
More, because I know him personally. And he's getting to a point, I think this, that he wants his money to work for him now. He's at that age.
How do you know that?
Because I know him personally.
Right. And because you know him personally,
when we have conversations,
y'all are talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I'm trying to get him to do it for other people.
Well, I know a good person that he could do it for if he decides to open up his checkbook. What you kind of skimmed over it really quickly, right? And you just said having conversations with people. That is the premise of the mentee, right? It's get clear on what you want and then go find other people that are already doing it and have conversations with them. That's what mentorship is all about. So that's a great segue to just kind of move into specific relationships or relationships along the way that have helped bring you to where you're at. And how intentional have you been about those relationships? Did they just kind of come to you? They were already with you and then you kind of developed. And so is it like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so you were able to take existing relationships and change the nature of them because you changed, or did you intentionally make new relationships, create new relationships? Obviously you've had an evolution over the last 10 years. Your life is different. I mean, you're realizing a dream that's been inside of you for almost 15 years now. You've upgraded your jobs. You've upgraded your financial situation, your income, your net worth. How have relationships played a part in that evolution? So
any job that I've had, I make it a point to find the best person at that job and ask them to teach me. Because if I'm going to do something, I want to do it the right way. And I don't want just anyone teaching me. I want the best person to teach me. And so I did that at the engineering firm. I seeked out, the person who's been in the industry for 40 years. He thankfully loves to teach. And I learned more in the 2 years I worked for him than people had learned in 5 or 6 years. And then kind of the same thing at the restaurant. I kind of fell into the restaurant because the restaurant started off so small. I worked directly with the owners. And when you work directly with the owners, you become the best at the job. And so going into real estate, I took that with me. I made a connection with those two instances. And so when I started real estate, I didn't want to just learn from anybody. I wanted to learn from the best. And so continuing to surround myself with the best people in the industry allows me to have better conversations with people in my sphere.
Love that. And you've already referenced the environment being one that supports big thinking, even mindset resets. Why do we need mindset resets, Allison?
Because it's easy to listen to your drunk monkey.
How often does that drunk monkey talk to you, Allison?
All the time, too much.
How do you combat that? This is our opportunity to teach the listeners that you have a drunk monkey, just like I have a drunk monkey. And like I say, a lot of times they don't think that other people do. So how do you combat your drunk monkey? And how often does your drunk monkey talk to you? And how do you continuously talk it off your shoulder, make it get away, silence it, and achieve your goals?
I think that looking at some of my drunk monkey starts talking, I have to stop and say, is what I'm telling myself true? Or is it something I'm just telling myself? And if it's, a confidence thing, like you can't do that or whatever it is, I look back in my past and try and find something that was similar that I overcame. It's like, okay, well, if we're looking at stats here, you did this time. So what makes this different? It's just like a step higher. And so that's kind of how I've overcome. And then if that's not working, I call, in reinforcements, the people I know and trust. And I'm like, hey, this is what my drunk monkey's telling me, but I need to work through it. And so talking it out with other people helps big.
Have you always been this way where you would call a friend, phone a friend, call a lifeline, and then talk it out with other people? You've always been open and sharing in that respect?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I've been in therapy for 12 plus years. And so I've always been pretty open about what is going on in my mind and how to overcome it. And I think a lot of what I'm able to do now is also because I've basically been having a mindset coach for so long.
And that's that's how you look at your therapist as a mindset coach?
Well, now, not at first, right? We have to get through some stuff, but now definitely, because what it's taught me is to know myself so well, like pick up on my patterns, pick up on the time of the year and how I'm, what's going on. Like I hate December, January, February. So I know like to give myself grace in those months. Now March comes on. So, and I wanted to bring this up because you're seeing a lot of growth and success. But when I was 19, I was in a very dark place. And I was not the same person that I am today. And
you recognize none of us are.
Right. And I changed my diet, and that my whole entire life did a 180. And if I wouldn't have changed my diet, I would not be here with us. Like I would not be having this conversation with you. And so a lot of people who know me now and see what's happening now don't know, right, what it took to get here, but it took a lot of work. Didn't always have this mindset. I wasn't always super outgoing, and my anxiety was debilitating. Like there's no way I could be going to France for 3 months had I not made the changes that I made in my early 20s.
Well, how did you make those changes? Because that's what we want to talk about today. That's what we want to unlock for the people that are listening that are in the same place that you were when you were 19, wherever that was. And I don't know the depths of that story, right? But how there are people that are unhappy. There are people that feel stuck. There are people that feel in a rut. There are people that are hungry and they want to change, but they are paralyzed for one reason or the other. And the whole purpose of sharing these stories with people that I know are excelling is to give peek behind the curtains on what the hell had to happen for change to come. So was it one decision? Was it 30 decisions to finally get to the one decision that unlocked the change to happen? Like, what is your advice? Let me ask it that way. What's your advice to the person that was you at 19 years old, now knowing what you know at 32?
Well, my advice would be pay attention to what you eat and how it reacts to your body and your mind. Because I think what we put in our food really affects us mentally to a degree that we don't really understand. And then to get a support system, like I had.
What were symptoms of your diet before you changed it? In other words, if you were to say, hey, listeners, if you have symptoms of X, Y, and Z, I would recommend checking your diet. What are the symptoms?
Depression, anxiety, ADHD, too much sleep. Like when I say too much sleep, like literally sleeping the day, like your life away.
Okay, that's fair. So we've got that list. And so if the listeners are experiencing those ailments, your recommendation is to check their diet, starting with what?
Gluten.
Starting with gluten.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me more.
So you can have tests, right, to check if you are gluten intolerant and whatnot. I was fortunate that my aunt was already implementing a gluten-free diet with her son who's on the spectrum. And she had seen like night and day, like he went from not speaking to speaking full-blown sentences within 2 weeks of putting him on a gluten-free diet. And so I was living with her at the time because I could not live by myself. We did not think it was safe enough for me to live by myself. And so I moved in with her. And the way I got on a gluten-free diet is kind of a miracle. It was by accident. When we linked the two together, our minds were blown.
So, Allison, who is your support system? I really don't know that part of you. Mom, dad, siblings?
No. So my aunt back then, she was my support system. My friends really didn't understand what was going on. I was hard to love back then. And I was going through a lot, trying to find my authentic self, right? So I had like pink hair and I was starting to get tattoos and, nose ring. And that just wasn't who I was in high school. And then I went into, dealing with my mental illnesses and all of that. And my aunt, like I really would not be alive if it wasn't for her. And then as the changes started to happen, early on, people thought, I was full of crap because back then is not what, like being gluten-free back then is not what it is today. It was like unheard of. You were off your rocker, the whole thing. But because it was like poison to me, it was easy for me to let it go. Like it was literally life or death. And I think that because it was life or death, like because I saw the big change when I wasn't eating gluten, it's easy for me not to do it.
Sure.
Because it makes that much of a difference. And so my aunt was my support system for a long time. And then as the people started really seeing, okay, this isn't a fluke, this is real. And I started being more of who I am now versus who I used to be. My mom started to like really understand and get on board, and it just kind of evolved from there. And then my therapist and my aunt were pretty much my people for a good 5 years.
Are the tattoos not who Allison is today?
Yes, they are.
They are. Okay.
But not who Allison used to be.
But they weren't back then. Okay. You'll have to explain that to me one day.
Okay. So this is funny. I'm going to put this in. Maybe it'll give a little perspective.
Okay.
So another one of my dreams I've always wanted is to have dreads. Like I want dreadlocks. And so I'm getting dreads when I go to France. Like before I leave for France, I'm going to have dreads because I'm not going to, see anybody for work or anything. And my 19-year-old self wanted dreads, but I didn't think that I was the type of person who could pull off dreads. Right. And if I'd have showed up with dreads at 19, everyone would have been like, what is going on? Yeah. But now if I show up with dreads, no one's going to blink an eye. They're like, oh, Allison has dreads. What's like, that's normal, right? It wouldn't really raise eyebrows. And
but
so
what we got to unpack that a little bit.
Okay.
We just got to unpack that a little bit. You think that people won't judge you with dreads today, but you thought they would judge you back then. Mm-hmm. So is the difference people judging you or your concern with people judging you?
I think both. I think that I don't care what people think now.
Yes.
Back then, I don't think I did. Well, it might be something I'm telling myself, right? But the reason I say this is because when I showed up with pink hair and a tattoo and nose ring, everyone that knew me about fell on the floor because they were like, who is this person? Allison's having a midlife crisis because this is not who we thought she was.
But that is who she was.
But that was my authentic self. And I was just trying to get there. And so at the time, I didn't think that I had the vibe that could pull off dreads and tattoos and the whole 9 yards. And now it's just part of me, I think.
I got it. That is a deeper discussion. That is a deeper discussion, but we'll save it for another day. What's the one thing that therapy has helped you overcome? I remember the first day that Janae and I ever went to marriage counselor. I felt so awkward because I had judgment around people that see a marriage counselor.
Mhm.
And I thought, we're not getting a divorce. We're not on the verge of getting a divorce. But God, I felt like because we were there, if people found out, they would think we were getting a divorce, and it made us not want to go. And it was really just because we had a vision for the marriage that we wanted, and we needed help. We needed a teacher. We needed a coach to help us bring that vision to fruition. And we've since had a marriage coach in different parts of our life, and we obviously have grown better as a result of that. But tell me about therapy, and what's some of the, maybe the one big or a couple big takeaways that therapy's helped you do?
I think that we all have trauma, right? We all have some traumatic events, and
which can be even small events. It doesn't have to be molestation or rape or anything that drastic. It can be small little nuances that have a detrimental effect on us. And we describe those as traumas.
Right. So for me, I felt like people were trying to put me in a box, and I didn't belong in a box. I belonged outside of a box. And that was really starting to take a toll on me. I had a problem with perfection. I know that's shocking, but I've come a long way, but not being.
So you no longer have a problem with perfection?
No, I still do.
No, Allison, I don't want you to say that, Allison.
We've come a long way, but it's just, and we've talked about before, it's the both and, not the either or. It's living in flow. Is that what you say?
I do believe in flow for sure.
And so it's just sorting through all of the crap, because you could have the perfect childhood and there's something in there that you need to work through. And if we don't take care of ourselves, then how are we going to show up to be the best selves, our best selves for other people? And it's just good to have someone in your corner too.
Well, you said sort through all the crap. Is that what you said? Sort through all the crap? What does that mean? Sort through all the crap? Does that really just acknowledge that we tell ourselves stupid stuff that's not true?
Yeah. And like, there's layers. Like, so when I started therapy, I thought I had an issue with my mom. And while there was issues there, right? Mother, daughter, there's always, challenges there. My issues with her were very surface level. And my issues with my dad, like if you'd have asked me when I walked into therapy, I didn't have issues with my dad. We were gravy. We were good. And it was all my mom, right? And then as the years started to go by, what we realized was the issues with my mom were very surface level. And the deep, deep issues that I had were with my dad. But that's not why I went to therapy. And so it's like literally pulling back an onion and understanding why you do the things you do, or how you feel about certain things, and how you can change those as you grow, and how you don't have to stay stuck in them, and how life happens for you and not to you. It really helps you. And then some of the, like, you just find peace. Well, for me, I found so much peace and empathy for my parents too, right? Our parents do the best that they can with what they have and how their childhoods were. And you just kind of come full circle, and it just helps you have empathy for all the other people in your life as well as yourself.
I was going to ask the last, and how about empathy for yourself? So it's allowed you to give yourself grace, because you don't have to be perfect.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So rounding out and kind of closing things out, you were one of the participants in the Mentorship Mastermind event in Austin with us. What made you want to go? What were your expectations, and how did it deliver?
I wanted to go because I've never been to a mastermind event, and I hear great things about them. And I know that if I want to elevate my life, I have to continue growing and pushing myself and surrounding myself with people who are doing more than me. And so I really didn't have expectations because I didn't know what to expect. And I'll say this because I was concerned with the amount of people that I knew going, right? Like I was like, oh, all these people I already know. I know what they're doing. I'm around them, for the majority of my life. Like our worlds are meshed. And when I left, I was so thankful that I went with that group of people because so much growth happened that I couldn't imagine unpacking it with someone who wasn't there. And so that was pretty cool to get to experience it with people I know when I was concerned about that. And there's just so much we could talk for another hour.
Well, one of the questions that I have for you to help answer is how do you know that growth occurred? Like, there was so much growth that happened. Like, how do we know? How do you know?
I know because I came home and made some tough decisions.
And those tough decisions do what towards your desired future self?
They helped me get there.
And you don't think you would have made those tough decisions had you not went?
I think I would have, but I would have probably drug it out a little longer. And I felt like I had gone backwards. I mean, we talked about it. I was like, I went over there and I went backwards. I felt paralyzed. And that's how I knew growth was happening. Because anytime that I go somewhere, it happens when I travel a lot. I leave one version of me and I come back another, and I feel paralyzed. Like, how does this new version of me fit into the world that didn't change, right? Or changed very slowly. Like, I just grew like a lot in 3 days, and my world only grew like an inch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so anytime I feel paralyzed like that, I know that growth is happening. And so that's just from past experiences.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So would you do it again? Would you recommend other people to do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
How would somebody know if they need to go? What do they need to be feeling or thinking or wanting to say, that's for me?
I think that if you value growth, if you want to live a bigger life than what you're living, if you have goals and you're just not hitting them, or, you just want to learn more, I think that you should definitely sign up and go.
I love it. Hey, do you have a favorite book that you've read, or speaker, TED Talk, YouTube video? Any of that ever had like a profound effect on your life that you'd like to share with anybody?
Yes. Personality Isn't Permanent by Ben Hardy.
Really? That's your book?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that was your book.
Yep. Gabby gave it to me when I started real estate. And that book was a lot because of my past, right?
Yeah.
Because we can be anyone who we want to be. And the past that I had, it's kind of been my journey. And so seeing it on paper, he talks a lot to the little 19-year-old in me. He talks a lot to her. And so there was a lot of healing that went on when reading that book too.
Yeah,
I think it's a fantastic book.
I do too. And I also don't think that the title does it very much justice. That book had a profound effect on me as well. In fact, I teach a lot from that book. That book is one of the most marked up books that I own because of the format and the way in which Ben articulates the lessons inside of that book. It's a fantastic book for sure. Well, that's awesome. Allison, do you have anything else that you think the listeners should hear, would want to hear before we wrap this up?
Just keep going through the trenches. There was light at the end of the tunnel.
I love it. Hey, Allison, thank you so much for joining me today.